You're listening to the Autism Weekly podcast. Each week, we share community voices and bring light to stories that increase awareness, acceptance, equity, access, and inclusion. If you haven't already, subscribe to join the Autism Weekly family. I'm your host, Jeff Skibitsky. This week, we're joined by Clara Garcia, Director of Programs, and Melissa Cardona, Senior Resource Specialist at the Autism Society of Inland Empire. Clara brings decades of experience in inclusion and program development, while Melissa, a parent of 2 children on the spectrum, is passionate about supporting families and building connections. Together, they'll share insights on fostering inclusion, creating sensory-friendly programs, and meeting the needs of the autism community. Welcome to the podcast, Clara Garcia and Melissa Cardona.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you for having us.
It's absolutely my pleasure. And the idea of inclusion, it's something that I feel like as much as we touch on this subject, we're only barely hitting the periphery always. And I can't wait to be able to talk more about this with you all and learn from your experiences. But before we go there, I'd love to be able to give a little bit of a background where that passion starts from. And maybe we can start with you, Clara, and you can give us a little bit of a background of how you got into working for the Autism Society of Inland Empire.
So the way I am also a parent of 2 young adults on the spectrum, and the way I got started was through volunteering. I used to be a counselor. My field was mental health before, and as my kids got diagnosed, I just started jumping in and was trying to do everything possible, connecting families with resources, connecting myself. Melissa and I met through one of the events that I attended or that we both attended and became friends and continue to work together. So the passion came from my own need to find events, programs, and resources, and then wanting to provide the same type of things and even advocacy for families.
And I think that a lot of us start through that same journey. And I think that it's the passion that drives the wonderful ideas. Melissa, on the grounds of inclusion, how did inclusion become such a big part of what you're advocating for and what you're working to be able to empower others to be able to achieve?
So for me, it also began because I'm a parent of 2. So many years ago, there wasn't a lot of inclusion. There wasn't a lot of resources or places to go and connect with other parents. So in my mind, I'm like, how do I help fill that gap? How do we come together to fulfill that bridge to connect with other parents and other professionals? Because without the professionals, we didn't know what we were doing. Mm-hmm. So inclusion is completely important because you also need those role model kiddos to help your child. So coming together and that connection between the community, the parents' family, your extended families, it's very, very important to be able to raise a loved one with autism. It really does take a village.
And everybody wants to belong, right? Everybody wants to be a part of the community, and separating, the disability or the autism community from the typical, neurotypical community is a difficult thing for everyone, because it's, everybody wants to belong. Or if you have a sibling on the spectrum, you want them to be included in the activities that you're included in, and vice versa, right? If they're included, if someone that's on the spectrum is at an event, you want them to, the neurotypical siblings, to also be there. So a sense of belonging is very important, not only to the child, the adult, but to the families as well, and feeling accepted and part of.
Absolutely. And that sense of belonging, I'd love to kind of hover on that phrase a little bit, because I think inclusion has different definitions depending on who you're talking to. And oftentimes we don't really always hit on some of the values that those who are really fighting to be included and have a role and a way to be able to participate in the way that they feel is empowering. I think that sometimes is missed just on the term. So how do you define inclusion, Clara? What does that look like?
So inclusion could look, like you're saying, exactly that. It could look different for different people. Since autism is a spectrum, people need varying supports, right? Sometimes inclusion could look like an invitation, come along with sometimes it could have accommodations, sometimes it could be allowing the ABA therapist or caretakers to join along. It depends on the level of support needed sometimes. Sometimes it's the invitation, or sometimes it is having a special time for families to come and be able to feel comfortable and then be able to leave or continue to join. So it looks different for everyone. That's why inclusion, it is a hard mark to hit, because it varies by family and by the need of that family. And some with more complex needs might need a little more support and accommodations, and inclusion to them could mean something different. And I think that's why it's important also to, when we all have our events, organizations like ours and yours, it's good to get feedback to see how else we could have done things well, so that way you can continue to feel supported, because it varies so much. I don't know if you want to add anything to that, Melissa.
Yeah, no, you hit it straight on, because we have those with more needs, so they need less attendance into these events. So they want smaller. They want to be able to have that accessibility and the opportunity to meet others that are sharing that similar journey, to connect with them. And then I think overall, for me, the inclusion is the connection. Like Clara said, everybody wants friendships. They want to feel part of the community. So that's something that we really thrive and work hard on promoting.
So when you're promoting that, I mean, I feel like there's so many avenues that you could be going down. It could be empowering families. It could be working with to be able to share the voice of the self-advocate. It could be helping to coach communities on how to be involved. What sort of role does the Autism Society of Inland Empire fulfill while you're trying to meet that goal of creating inclusive environments? Maybe we'll start with you, Melissa, from your standpoint. Is how does the Autism Society of Inland Empire meet all those needs?
So we don't do it alone. When we connect, or when I connect with other venues to try to host an event, I start with their staff. What training do they have? Are they willing to allow our community to come in? Are they willing to adjust some sensory friendly features, the lighting, the sound control? Are they accessible to all? Do they have that ADA component? So I take that into consideration before we decide where we're going to be hosting the events. We want to make sure we're not near bodies of waters. We want to make sure that we're not near parking lots, maybe half enclosed places that they can go and practice safety. So it takes a little bit of different variables to determine what's a great place to promote the events, but it's done with partnerships with other community-based organizations and other businesses as well, who are willing to connect with us to provide that for the families.
And Claire, I mean, so to draw this picture out, can you give us an example of an event and kind of, the inner workings of that, and what sort of community partners were there and how you adapted to some of these, whether it's sensory or whether it's being able to create opportunities for information or resource sharing? Can you give us kind of a walkthrough of a recent event that highlighted some of that?
Because Melissa does most of the events, I'll let her answer that. But before she does, I will talk a little bit about, like, kind of zooming out and some things you touched on, because it's not just the events that we're doing the training. We're doing sensory training with Parks and Recs, places that we're one of our big things is to push out into the community. So if we're pushing out into the community, then we need to be able to train and effectively and give information to other areas that are going to be mingling with our families and accepting our families into their programs. So one that is one of the big things that we do is offer training. We offer a lot of education for parents, for professionals, for we collaborate with the regional center who also does a lot of like safety training, like the blue envelope program. We collaborate with different police departments, offer them sensory bags, sensory training. So there are hospitals. So there's a lot of advocacy and training that goes into and we practice what we preach, right? We do it at our events, and that's what we promote, what we do, and how we do it. So I'll let Melissa. I'm I probably was doing events for many years, and thankfully Melissa has been able to take over that role.
Melissa, before we go there, I do want to just, I mean, as you were going through that, Clara, I'm thinking about so many parts of our society, so many of the opportunities, whether it is being able to access healthcare, whether it is being able to kind of get a haircut, whether it is being able to go out and be a part of a community rec league, I mean, whatever it could be. I don't want to diminish the amount of education that has to go out there for somebody to even feel competent to take that challenge on. A lot of groups probably stand back and don't try because they don't have the skills. So that training piece that you're talking about is so crucial to create that community. But yeah, Melissa, with the events, it sometimes is easier just to kind of see it in our minds and see everything that's going on. Can you give us that mental picture?
So a small one would be like the movie theaters. We rent out a theater, and the families, the kiddos can run around, the lights are still on, and the sound is lower. So that's a kind of pretty simple, complex one. We just hosted our Spooktacular out in Coachella Valley. So it was in a gated baseball field. So it's a safe place. The children can run around. There's only one exit. So that gave the families a sense of security, knowing, okay, my child can only get so far. We wanted to make sure, the restroom was nearby. We wanted to make sure we had a calm and quiet zone area. That's one of the main things we do when we host different events out in different organizations and businesses, is to have a quiet zone available with fidgets, noise canceling headphones. We had another event at the Santa Ana Zoo. So to be inclusive, we rented out part of the zoo. Again, it was gated, it was private, but then it also allowed families to go out to the zoo with neurotypical children and families out there, and they kind of were able to build that connection out in the community. It was safe because it's small, but yet they had the ability to go back to where we had our kind of private event. If they needed to have a quiet zone, if they needed to have a moment or connect with other families, they had the option of going back and forth. So they felt comfortable knowing, okay, if it's too much, we have a safe zone to go back to. So when we do the events, we try to think, at least I try to think of every different scenario that can go wrong and try to make sure I have a plan B and all the way to a plan Z. So it does take a lot of planning to make sure I'm thinking of everybody on the spectrum. What do the children want? What do the teens? What about our adults that still want to participate in things that children and teens are doing? Making sure they're safe. So I take all that into consideration before we put an event out there.
Yeah, it sounds like it definitely takes a village. I'd love to hear if either one of you all have parent reaction stories. I would imagine is that there's a lot of families who might avoid going to some of these community activities that don't have at least a level of support, a level of understanding, a level of feeling like if I'm out there and I'm putting myself out there, is that I'm not going to feel like I'm a burden on somebody, or that I'm doing something that is going to be inconvenient for the zoo or something like that. And feeling that confidence that, my family matters. We should be out there, and feeling appreciated for being a part and included in it. Do families give you stories? Do they give you kind of that feedback afterwards?
They do. The one we get a huge feedback on is the Cove, the water park. A lot of families don't go when it's open to the public. The lines are too long. Their child having meltdowns just because the water temperature is not meeting their standards. And at the Cove, I feel like no one bats an eye. Everyone's doing their thing. Everyone's just like, oh, they ask, do you need help? It's easier, and you don't feel alone. I know for me personally, I remember when he was a toddler, I couldn't take him to the library because you have to have quiet voices. Well, my son does not have a quiet voice. So the library was a place that I couldn't enter for years until they started doing that sensory friendly hour before they open. So I'm like, okay, let me start there. So having those private events at the water park, at different events that we partner with businesses, allows them a sense of security. And if something goes wrong, it will be okay because I'm surrounded by people who understand. So that's a lot of the feedback that we get. And we try to make sure that we reduce the capacity of how many attend our events. I know I feel bad for when it's sold out. I want to have more reach, but I also want to be, conscious of those that need a little bit more space. We need the lines to be a little bit shorter. We need to make sure we have, that personal space for them to feel okay. So we get a lot of great feedbacks from families, and they enjoy what we do.
I'd like to add that one of the things that makes me personally most proud is that I repeatedly over the years, people come up and say, thank you for providing a safe space for us to come and enjoy ourselves with, to do a holiday event or to practice, the jump nights or just at every event I get a thank you, and it's heartfelt, and the families are almost in tears, right? They're just saying thank you. We are not able to do these types of things without, and then eventually you see those families years later, and then they're like, oh, we went to this place or we went to that place because we were able to practice those things with your organization. And the other, I have a recent experience where there's an airport event where they practice boarding a plane. They practice checking in, boarding the plane, it taxied, and then came back. And there's this one particular family who we love, has been a part of us for over the years, and they're practicing to go to a long trip next year. And this was their first time trying, and it had its up and downs, but when we got on the plane, he was fine. He came back out, everybody clapped, and it was really, really heartfelt. It was, and then they said, oh my gosh, maybe we could do this. We're gonna, buy those $49 plane rides, and they said we're gonna do that next. And so they're practicing, and those are things that those are the opportunities that we are able to provide for our families. This was at Ontario Airport in partnership with Alaska Airlines. So because of organizations or others that are thinking innovative and forward thinking like that we can do that for our families. But yeah, that was a wonderful heartfelt moment, and I was glad to be there the whole time.
Yeah, I mean, I hear that it definitely opens up a whole new world for families. It opens up a whole new world for autistics in general. It's I'm able to be a part of the community that I should be a part of. But it also, I would imagine, and this is where I'd love to hear that further education piece, is that if I were a water park or a library or an airline, and I went through an event like that, are they reaching back out to continue education to figure out, hey, I just saw something amazing today. How do I make this part of my everyday process? How do I make this so that I can create an inclusive environment, not once, twice, three times a year because of events, but I can make it so that I can create a world where, on every given day, somebody could come and I know how to make it work for them.
I think we have those leaders, right? A lot of people are hiring neurodiverse or community engagement people who are taking those things into account and to provide some some equity or to provide some inclusion for families. It a lot of these things are systems change, right? It's systemic that they have to make these changes, but as they're providing little by little, and the need arises more, then as families come as well, then they start seeing, okay, I've got to implement this, and I've got, just same with all of us, right? As we start seeing the need, then we start making those adjustments, and I think it'll come naturally for those organizations, for those, oh, we could easily do this little thing. You hear of a lot of airports that are providing sensory rooms now, or like, I believe SoFi Stadium, just different stadiums, they're providing different things as they're seeing the needs of the community arise. And with the numbers going up on the spectrum, people are, and it's impacting more and more of us, right? Every time I go in a room, do you have a relative with autism? And do you know someone with autism? And I don't think there's ever been a room where people don't know of someone or aren't related to someone with an autistic individual.
Yeah, and I think I feel like I've seen over the last 30 years I've been in the field is that I've seen a cultural, a systemic change over time, but there's still room to improve. I mean,
definitely.
When you all are looking at this from your perspective, is that you've seen so much change, I'm sure, but where are the areas that we probably still need to put a little bit more time, energy, and focus? Where is it that maybe we're still missing right now that it would be nice to say, hey, let's put our energy into this to start finding more solutions? Where are you seeing some of this, Melissa? Are you seeing it just on community access in general? Is it just being able to kind of be out in grocery stores and restaurants? Is it opening the world? I mean, where are we missing?
Well, I will say restaurants is definitely number one. I also think because it's easier, everyone lives near a city community center. So to me, those are the ones that are more important to have the trainings. There are a lot of cities that offer inclusive and adaptive recreational activities, but there are some that still do not. And I understand that, it could be staffing, they might not have the proper the training, the funding, but I believe it starts with them, because it's hard for families to drive to the next city or the different city to be able to go to that adaptive program, or those self-employed programs that are 50 miles away. But every city has a community center. So we've done the Parks and Recs trainings. I would love to do more of those, but it starts with them also wanting to partner up with the Autism Society. And it also starts with parents. I always tell parents, go down to your city council, go voice your opinion. Some of them, they don't know what they don't know, so they don't know that there is a need. They're just, they're focused on what they're usually focused. And then I feel once you go out into that community and you let them know, hey, there's a wide community and population of children within this school district, within this region that need support. What can we do together to make something grow? And I feel like it starts not only with different organizations, but with parents as well, going in groups, talking to their officials and seeing how can we work together to make those adaptive sports and recreational activities within each city.
Absolutely. And you just mentioned something that I think hits home for me. It's you said that people they don't want to have to go to different places. They don't want to have to get up and go 20 miles to go find the next thing. But for a lot of commuting is hard. There aren't driver's ed teachers who are focused on how do I help support a neurodiverse person on getting their license. I mean, it's very few when they do exist. The education for public transportation drivers, do they understand how they could help support somebody who's neurodiverse to be able to kind of work through being able to get on a bus, to the train system, being able to utilize Uber effectively. I mean, whatever it may be, is that those are some issues that come to mind for me. Clara, what do you see as far as the future of where we need to be putting energy?
I think one of the things that our executive director Beth Burt and I work really hard at is advocating for those that have complex needs. The services that are available for those families that are in crisis with mental health, behavioral health, because those services we in the Inland Empire we are in lack of. Although we are us as an organization with other organizations, the regional center, we're working hard at it. It is still one of the places that we need the most resources and funding, right, to go to, as far as those complex needs, the non-speaking community that you know we were talking about hospital training earlier, how to effectively help the parents to get the right resources for those complex needs. And I think that's one of the barriers that we're seeing. Another barrier that we are also seeing is, like Melissa mentioned, some of the families don't know, especially culturally, right? Uh, some families. And I'm not going to say generalize and say everybody, but culturally, the Latino families are not used to asking for, oh, hey, this or that. They're used to being, um, and I, like I said, I don't want to generalize, but sometimes just culturally, it's more like, okay, if I knew, right, and we could tell by the numbers of people that are receiving different services compared to, so other ethnicities as well are needing more services. Like social rec is a big part, but it's not the only part. We need interventions, therapies, like and Spanish speaking therapists, right? We are in very high demand for, as well as respite providers. And so I think when we're talking about barriers, I think those are some of the big barriers that we have, and the understanding of what those processes, like an IEP, which is an individualized education plan, or an IPP, look like with the regional center, right? So those are things that I see from kind of like a bigger scale.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, even growing the capacity of culturally diverse clinicians and practitioners out there, I think it's an important piece. And just if you're going to be empowering a family, you need to understand the family. You need to be able to communicate with the family. You need to understand their values. And if you're not able to do that by taking kind of a step back and understanding the perspective, it makes it a lot harder to be able to empower them effectively. And so you all have
Well,
been in
and
this. I mean, go
I,
ahead. I'm
I would
sorry.
just like to add, I think one of the things that we also need as organizations, and this is speaking to the professionals, and we as organizations can provide much, empowerment, education, but we also need to see what are their needs, right? What their needs are, and what do they want, right? Like we can say, oh,
Mhm.
you need this and you need that, and I'm going to educate you on this, but we can't walk into a home and say this is what you need. They need to navigate that piece, and I think that's what Melissa does wonderfully with the rest of our team, is that we meet them where they are,
Mhm.
instead of us saying, hey, this is what is needed.
Yeah, it's funny is that whole concept of family-centered planning has only really been within the last decade that it's really been
Mm.
pushed heavily, but it's something logically that makes so much sense. You all, as part of the Autism Society, are a far more mature organization than in California, especially because this is something that has been worked on. When you look at other states, they might not have as much of a history of resources or being able to kind of get as much community involvement. So, how do you suggest that families go about promoting inclusion or being able to bring this discussion to the table in their own communities if it's not happening enough already?
One thing I've noticed is that families or parents or caregivers are meeting others and they're starting little pods. They're trying to group. I've seen a few here in my surrounding areas, and I think that's beautiful because you're finding someone who's relatable, and then little by little they start growing. Whether it's on social media, there's a lot of different support groups that are within certain cities, and those little pods are learning from each other within their surrounding city, and then they continuously educate others that are coming in that are newly diagnosed. Yes, we're here as the Autism Society, and because we serve such a wide range, it's hard to get at every single city. So I think it's wonderful that we have parents. I think it all starts with parents who want to make a change. And you have one that might know what to do, you have one that doesn't know what to do, and just together, boom, they can make a huge difference. Because even myself, even with my school, I'm trying to educate my big thing is my Hispanic moms, trying to let them know here, these are your rights, and having them spread the word to the others or those that are newly diagnosed. They don't know what the acronyms mean. Everybody talks in acronyms nowadays. Here's the toolkit. Here's what each word means. Feel free to bring it with you and let them know, give me 1 second, let me talk it over. So finding those little groups, exchanging numbers, it starts there. And I think as those little pods keep growing, changes keep happening.
That's such great advice.
I also think that community members, right, that champion us, because we deal with a lot of community members that not necessarily are not parents, but so it's in addition to, right, that these are the people that champion our families. They champion our organizations, and then they champion the work. They start being inclusive and putting that. And although they are not necessarily touched, but they are touched by our mission, and they are touched by our families. So as they collaborate with us and do the work with us, it goes hand in hand, right? It's multi-pronged. It's the professionals, it's the community members, and it's also, the parents and the individuals on the spectrum, right? Those who can have a voice and be able to share, hey, this is, empowering them, and then them being able to advocate for themselves. These are my needs. Because there's so many different needs, and some might, like I said earlier, some might need different types of supports, and some might need it more quiet, some might need it more fast paced, so there's different types of needs. So I think all that combined would do well.
Yeah, I mean, and what you all are building, it sounds extremely challenging, but I would imagine extremely fruitful when you see something come into fruition. And I guess I'd be remiss not to ask what's coming up on the agenda for the Autism Society of Inland Empire. Are there events that you all have on the horizon?
Yes, we're super excited because I love the winter holidays. So we do have 2 events on December 6th. We're going to be at the Living Desert Zoo in Palm Desert, and we're going to have a festive private pre-party. And then families get to go into the zoo to the wildlife 30 minutes earlier than the public. So that way it gives them that private feeling and then that inclusive feeling once the rest of the general public comes in. And then on December 14th, we did reserve the entire venue at Mulligan's Family Fun Center in Murrieta. And that one, it is private. So a lot of the families come with their caregivers, their therapists. So that way they can practice in a natural setting everything they've worked either at their center or at their homes. So it allows them to practice without any judgment. It's a safe place. And so we welcome all ages to come and have a great time at both of them. We'll have our sensory friendly Santa for pictures and just sensory friendly activities. And of course, we have our quiet zone for anybody that needs to have a moment. So we make sure we accommodate as much as we can.
And I would be remiss not to mention.
I will definitely make sure. Oh, go ahead, Clara. Sorry.
I would also like to mention that we will be having, if there's anyone out there thinking how they can support our mission, and what we do is we're having a silent auction November 14th through to the 30th, and then we're also going to participate in Giving Tuesday. So if there's any anyone that wants to support our organization and the work that we do. I think one of the wonderful things, and it's not widely known, is we sometimes give the families presents from with the partnership with FedEx, and I think that's sometimes what we raise funds for as well. I mean, apart from all of our other programs.
Well, I will definitely share that message. And I mean, for those that want to go on their own, the work that you all are doing, to be able to kind of keep up to date on everything as it starts to come out and gets closer to some of these event times or the educational pieces, where can they get information on your organization?
So they can go to ieautism.org or our Facebook, all of our social media sites is Autism Society Inland Empire for all our social media handles.
And we will definitely link to that as well.
Thank you.
And Melissa, what's the key takeaway that you'd imagine that you'd hope families walk away with, or even some of the community members and providers from the concept of the vet?
So the takeaway would be to take your loved ones out, go out in the community, because I believe inclusion starts with you, starts with every family taking that step out of their door. I know it's challenging, I know it's stressful, but it helps build confidence, and it's a way to belong. We have to make that first small step forward in order to be inclusive and to go out into the community. So I want families to take that brave challenge and especially come to our events. Even though, if a child lasts 10 minutes, it's 10 minutes that you were able to see, okay, what do I need to do to add an extra 15 minutes and, progress the outings. And I think that families just have to make that little tiny step and feel confident and comfortable in making that decision.
Thank you for taking the time to talk with us today. I have a feeling is that a lot of people are going to listen to this and immediately reach out to try and figure out how they can be involved and also how they can get out in the community and explore things that maybe they were hesitant to do in the past. But I do appreciate you carving off time because it was so informative for myself and for our listeners.
Thank you. And I hope families do reach out. That was going to be my key takeaway, that families, we're here to help, apart from events and the heartfelt passion that we have. One of our key things that we love to do and is help families navigate these resources and navigate the entities that can help your family and your children. And we are the same, right? We are parents. We have done this and will continue to support and continue to do this because we continue to navigate as well. So we want to be there to provide support and have families join us as a community as well.
Well, thank you again, and your work is definitely appreciated.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening to Autism Weekly. We hope you tune back in next week to learn more about autism in the real world. Autism Weekly is now found on all the major listening apps, including Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, Spotify, Amazon Music, and more. Subscribe to be notified when we post a new podcast. Autism Weekly is produced by ABS Kids. ABS Kids is proud to provide diagnostic assessments and ABA therapy to children with developmental delays like autism spectrum disorder. You can learn more about ABS Kids and the Autism Weekly podcast by visiting abskids.com. Thanks for tuning in. See you again next week.